I am so excited to be here with you today as we answer this essential question. What do growing readers do when they come to a word they do not know? And this should be something familiar to you as we look at how to figure out words we do not know today. Today I'm working with context clues so that I can determine the meaning of unknown words and phrases. I'll know I've got it if I can identify an unknown word and use context clues to determine its meaning. As we start today, I want to remind you where you can find this data. In your interactive notebook, you can find this next to L44A. And as you look at this part of your data, I want you to think about where did you start? What about as we move into our looking at yesterday's mid-unit check or quiz? Did that change your data? Did you grow? Where will you finish? And what will you do today to grow? So today you have a great opportunity to make choices that help you grow in this area of context clues. Let's go ahead and warm up our brains, activate our background knowledge about what we already know about context clues. We're going to use a strategy today in class that's called inside-outside circles. I'm excited to introduce you to a brand new mentor text today. And this text is about an interesting informational topic that ties into our literature text because of Winn-Dixie. So you can probably make a prediction based on the image you see that it might have to do with some type of bear. Let's go ahead and get a better idea of what this text may be about with a quick video. As we dig into our informational text about endangered bears, we are going to begin with what growing readers do. Growing readers always determine the meanings of many of the unknown words they see as they're reading. And without doing this strategy, then we do not understand or comprehend what we're reading at all. So it's important that we break down the text for the first time today by using these steps that we've already learned. Let's have a quick review of what context clues are. You can see on the screen that context clues are clues that readers use to find out the meaning of unknown words within a passage, story, or text. So it's what the author provides or clues to help us figure out what certain words or phrases might mean that we do not know. Now we have some steps we've learned, so let's review those. First, we read the sentence and underline or target the unknown word. Secondly, we think about what is happening in the sentence. Thirdly, we find other words that may explain the meaning of the unknown word. Sometimes it can be in the sentence before, the sentence of, or the sentence after. And then lastly, we try different words in place of the unknown word to see if the sentence makes sense. And you already know that I like to call that the plug it in strategy. And when we plug it in, we do not just think about what sounds right, but we think about what makes sense. Growing readers also know that there are 5 different types of context clues that authors can often give. And let's review those very quickly as we begin breaking it down an even more difficult passage. First, we have the definition clue. This is when an author defines the word or phrase for the reader. Secondly, we have a synonym clue. This is when the author uses a synonym to explain the unknown word. Thirdly, we have an antonym clue when an author gives us the opposite meaning to help us contrast the meaning of the word. Fourth, and this is the most common, we have an inferencing context clue. This is when the author expects the reader to look for clues and to think about what he already knows. I'm thinking that sounds a lot like yesterday's lesson on inferencing. And fifth, we have when an author gives us an example clue. So far, that's been a review from the first time that we looked at the different types of context clues when reading because of Winn-Dixie. As we think about context clues today, I want to make sure that you understand thinking you know the word or guessing the meaning does not count It isn't the same as using context clues. So sometimes I have readers tell me, well, I think it might mean, and then they make a guess. But they never went back and used the clues that the author gave them to determine the meaning. Growing readers, when they're looking for context clues and they come to an unfamiliar word, they use the clues to help them. They don't just use what they think they know. Now, our schema is important, but it just can't be the only thing that we use when we're thinking about determining the meanings of words. Now, I want you to notice the same information in a little bit of a different way. You should notice several of these words are the same. This is an acronym that can help you remember the different types of clues that authors give. I stands for inference. The meaning is not given, so you must use clues. So let's look at an example of what that might look like. Don't want to work with Ricardo unless you want to hear him talk about himself. He is so arrogant. This author gave an inference clue to help the reader determine the meaning of the word arrogant. Notice how the author said he likes to hear himself talk about himself. This is the clue to help us understand that the word arrogant must mean a person that thinks very highly of themselves, maybe even too highly. It is an inference clue because the meaning is not given, and you must use that clue, hear him talk about himself, to help us determine the meaning of the word arrogant. The second type of clue is a definition clue. This is the meaning of the word, and it's explained in the sentence. So this is a little bit of an easier type of clue that often authors will give us. Ricardo is so arrogant. He thinks he is more important than everyone else. Look at that definition. It says arrogant, and then it says he thinks he's more important than everyone else. That is the definition of the word. Often authors will give examples as clues. An example of the word is in the sentence or nearby the sentences. Like this example, Ricardo is so arrogant, he is always bragging about how great he is at sports. Well, I'm thinking that if I'm trying to determine the meaning of the word arrogant, and I notice it says he's always bragging about how good he is at sports, well, that's an example of being arrogant. Often authors will give us antonyms clues as well. This is when a word with opposite meaning is used in the sentence or nearby the sentence. So check out this example. Ricardo is so arrogant. He needs to learn to be humble like his little brother Jose. So if we're trying to determine the meaning of the word arrogant, and the author gives us the opposite of that word, like the word humble, that would help me know more about the word I'm trying to figure out. And lastly, authors might give us a synonym example. This is when words with similar meanings are used in or near the sentence. Like this example. Ricardo is so arrogant, proud, self-centered, and overbearing. These are all words, self-centered, overbearing, proud, that mean the same as the unknown word arrogant. Strong readers, or I like to call them growing readers, will always read the sentences surrounding the unknown word to look for clues. So now let's use these different types of clues to see if we can determine the meanings of unknown words and phrases in today's informational text about the grizzly bear. And you can notice by the title that they're endangered because the title says Endangered Species, the Grizzly Bear. Now, as we begin this text, you may notice the image or the photograph at the top. This photograph looks real, and that's because this is an informational text. It's nonfiction, which means the information found inside is very real. It is not like Because of Winn-Dixie, a make-believe story, but it does tie into our literature text. You should already notice, since this topic is about a grizzly bear, that's what happened as Miss Franny told her story about the library when she was a young girl. So we can make a connection there. Now, as we're reading this text, we will pause and break down some of the more challenging words. This is even more important when you're reading nonfiction or informational text because the text is harder. It has bigger words, it's harder to understand, and often readers find it more challenging because it's based on a topic instead of events. So we have to make sure we're breaking down those difficult words as we're reading. So let's go ahead and dive in to this text, Endangered Species, the Grizzly Bear. And as we dive in, we're going to be using context clues to determine the meaning of unknown words. The grizzly bear is a type of brown bear. It is one of the largest land animals in North America. An average male grizzly has a head and body length of 6 to 8 feet. It can weigh up to 800 pounds. Female grizzly bears are smaller. They weigh between 200 and 400 pounds. Wow, I'm thinking no matter if it's male or female, that is a very large animal. We're going to break down the meaning of the word average. We're going to use what we know from our notes, and we're also going to use a graphic organizer to help us. As we begin, we're going to determine the meaning of the first highlighted word, average. And the first thing I need to do is I need to copy down that sentence word for word from the text because my notes tell me I'm going to be able to use some clues inside this sentence. So I have copied that exact sentence from the text and I'm simply going to move it. Now later when you're doing this activity, you will write that sentence in this box, but for time's sake, I'm simply going to move it into that sentence box. Now that I have the sentence written from the text, an average male grizzly has a head and body length of 6 to 8 feet. Now I want to think about, do I have any word parts inside the word that might help me? And I do not see any on this word average, so I'm simply going to X this box out. Now I'm looking for any other clues in or around the sentence. And I might have to go back to the text, but let's check the sentence first. It says an average male grizzly has a head and body length of 6 to 8 feet. So I'm thinking about this head and body length of 6 to 8 feet. I'm using this to see if it can help me with the word average. So I'm thinking maybe this part of the sentence might help me. So I'm going to use this head and body length of 6 to 8 feet. And I'm going to also write this as other clues. Now I'm also going to notice it says male grizzly. So this is about male grizzlies. I think this is helpful when I'm thinking about clues. And let's go back to the text and see if we have any other clues that can help us around the word average. As I go back to paragraph 1, I'm noticing this entire paragraph is all about describing the grizzly bear. It's a type of brown bear, one of the largest land animals in North America. Then it gives the specifics of its head and its body, its weight, and then it also compares it to female grizzly bears. So I'm thinking average might be a describing word. So I'm going to write describing here. These are all clues that can help me. So now I'm thinking about a synonym of the word average. An average male. So I'm thinking it's saying most male grizzlies have a head and body length of 6 to 8 feet. And now this can lead me to the meaning. Based on the clues, based on the word most that I created, I think a synonym or maybe even the meaning of the word average might be normal. Normal size. Let's plug it in and see if it works. A normal male grizzly has a head and body length of 6 to 8 feet. So I'm thinking it's just saying most normal size male grizzlies are this size. Notice how those clues helped us to determine the meaning of the word average. As I'm thinking about those different types of context clues, I'm thinking in this example with the word average, an average male grizzly has a head and body length of 6 to 8 feet. I'm thinking this is an inference type of clue. The meaning is not given, so I had to use clues to determine the meaning. The author did not give me a definition, did not give me an example of the word average, an antonym, or a synonym, making inference the strongest type of clue given in this word average. Now let's move to paragraph 2. The text says, the grizzly bear gets its name from its coat. Its thick light brown to black fur is grizzled. That means it is streaked with gray. Grizzly bears have short, rounded ears and humped shoulders. Their paws have long, curved claws, and I'm noticing some of those features in the photograph. So let's go ahead and determine the meaning of the word grizzled. To determine the meaning of this word, I'm going to go ahead and look around the word. I'm noticing it says, its thick, light brown to black fur is grizzled. That means, I'm thinking about what our notes tell us, and I'm thinking there was a certain type of context clue that the author might provide the definition of the word we're trying to figure out. That means it is streaked with gray. So I'm noticing that the word grizzled means it is streaked with gray. So let's look at that graphic organizer. The sentence from the text says, its thick light brown to black fur is grizzled. And you can see I copied that and pasted it in the box that says sentence. I'm looking inside the word now for any word parts that might help me. And I'm noticing the suffix ed was placed on the end, meaning it's past tense, grizzled. So that might help me get in the routine of looking inside the word, because sometimes word parts might help us. In this example, ed, it just tells me it's in the past, but it doesn't give me any meanings. So now I'm looking for other clues. And the rest around that paragraph, right after the word, it says, that means it is streaked with gray. That's another clue, and it actually gives us the meaning. So grizzled means streaked with gray. And a synonym for that might be something like grayish. So now I know that their fur is grizzled or streaked with gray. So in the photo, it looks very brown, but it actually has parts of it that you can see like around the ears and the top, the back of the bear that kind of looks a little grayish. Well, that's grizzled. The author has given us that. So when I'm thinking about these different types of context clues here, this one was definitely a definition clue where the author actually gave us the meaning of the word and it was explained in the sentence. Now that you have seen me model how to determine the word average and grizzled, the next paragraph says, grizzly bears are omnivores, meaning they eat both plants and animals. But most of what they eat is vegetation or plants. So let's go ahead and think about this word omnivores and vegetation. Both are found very close to one another, and you're going to have an opportunity to practice determining the meanings of these words. Now that you have determined the meaning of the word omnivore and vegetation, let's go ahead and continue. The bears munch on fruits, berries, and nuts. They also eat ants and other insects. The meat on a grizzly bear's diet comes from deer, elk, and moose. Grizzly bears that live in Alaska feed largely on salmon. So do the bears that live along the west coast of Canada. Now let's think about the meaning of this word diet based on context clues. Now remember, as you're determining this meaning, it isn't about what you know only. So we can't just say, well, I think my aunt has gone on a diet before, so I know what that word means. We have to actually use the clues around it to determine the best meaning. We will pick up with the rest of the text tomorrow during our whole group lesson. But for right now, you're going to move into a check for understanding. And when you do, you're going to use this sentence or paragraph here, thinking about the word rely. We're going to check our understanding of the skill context clues with this question. You will solve it in your interactive notebook and click it into Socrative. Reread the following sentence from the text. Their bodies rely on it during their winter hibernation. What is the meaning of the word rely? Now, as you're solving, you must go back to the text to determine the best answer. That is what growing readers do. So I'm going to give you a moment to solve this one independently. As we prepare to move into small groups, I just want to thank you for learning with me more about context clues, and you should be able to tell already how many more words there are when you're reading nonfiction. You'll be practicing this in your small group today.